Um, hi. Hope you're enjoying the RSS 2025. Unfortunately, I missed most of it, but arrived today to take part in this workshop. I'm Radhika. I'm working as a technical specialist in ARIA, which is a new UK government's R&D funding agency. I'll give you a little bit of detail on what ARIA is and what we are funding and what are we doing in robotics at ARIA. And then talk more about interoperability, modularity, and standardization in robotics activity that we have done recently, along with some expert members that we recruited externally. So moving on, to give a little bit of background about myself, I've been in this space of robotics for past 15 years, mostly working with the industry with small, medium, large-scale enterprises with applications in different areas, starting from healthcare to logistics and warehousing, and everything that will fit in between. Everywhere there is a different challenge about how to get off-the-shelf things and glue them together. So I've been through that process. So moving on, starting off with a little bit of introduction on ARIA. ARIA is Advanced Research and Invention Agency, which is answer to US version of ARPAS and DARPAS. Although we realized it late, we are still doing it, even if it is a small scale funding. So each research space within ARIA will get around 50 to 80 million, and the research space, which we call as opportunity space within ARIA, is discovered and launched by individuals called program directors. We fund organizations, scientists, and engineers who are pursuing and exploring research which is at the edge of the possible and which can be technologically or scientifically very close to the edge of possible. And how we fund? There are certain principles on which we base our funding. As I've been mentioning, we are a government funding agency, so we are answerable to the taxpayers' money. But in spite of that, we are institution, background, and location agnostic, and we fund transformative projects than incremental research. And also we work with, we are not competing with any other funding bodies that are existing, but we are there to catalyze the research within UK. And we are funding lots of companies and universities outside UK as well, which I'm happy to chat about that later. So while there are many opportunity spaces within ARIA, I'll focus today on the robotics opportunity space of which I'm part of, which is called Smarter Robot Bodies. And as we have seen with both Adam and Stefan's presentation earlier, there is a lot of progress that is happening on the AI and the software side of things, but and also a little bit of progress happening on the hardware, but not as much. Stefan already mentioned about sensors, actuators, and other components. So there is something that is missing, which Jenny, during her discovery, realized that at one point we'll hit a bottleneck where the hardware is not realizing what's to or leverage the developments that are happening in the hardware. So that is where we are set out to push the current state of the art of the hardware. And you can see some of the things that we are focusing on, advancing the components as well as advancing the neural control with the co-design and co-evolution in simulation. So here you can see a hexagonal block in the center that is called an opportunity space. And the bigger blob in that you're seeing is a bigger chunk of money out of the smarter robot bodies has been assigned to the robot dexterity. Because during the discovery phase of this opportunity space, dexterity seemed to be a big bottleneck of not being able to take robotic systems into the real world applications. So in the smaller stretch stars or blobs that you're seeing there are opportunity seeds that we are funding, which are very ambitious projects that are kind of crazy and out there and high risk. But if they are successful, they can unlock something which can be a longer term breakthrough. So as part of the robot dexterity, there are several projects that we are funding. I don't want to spend too much time on it now. You can scan the QR code. Happy to talk about it later. But moving on, why am I here and why am I presenting in this session is there is a small pot of funding that has been allocated to figure out what's happening in the modularity, interoperability, and standards in robotics space. So this has been mentioned as a bottleneck during the discovery many a times, but all the fragmented efforts that have been happening, especially in the UK or in some cases in other parts of the world, they are all at the aspirational level and not giving any input on what are the actions that need to be taken and whether they can be done in short, medium, or longer term. So in order to address that, we have formed a small team with external experts to support ARIA, so me and Jenny, in order to figure out some of these about what are the technical and systemic blockers and where are the points that we can leverage on and who must act so that we can send some recommendations out at the end of this activity. Whether ARIA will be able to fund that or not, we are not sure with the limited amount of money, but this will be sitting out there for people who want to work on it and take it forward. So with respect to the team that I was mentioning on the top, I've already introduced myself and Jenny Reed, the program director, and Paul is the project management project program specialist with us within ARIA. And the expert committee that you're seeing there, so Minirai and Rob are senior academics with decades of experience in academia, but they have always worked and collaborated with industry. And Minnie has launched herself as a consultant recently, and Rob has experience spinning out companies. So they both bring in that expertise, and Dominic is from entrepreneurship background, runs Bridpots, which is a venture capital firm that funds robotic startups. Ipek is a research scientist at UK Atomic Energy Authority, and they have done a good bit of work exploring modularity and interoperability, so she brought that experience. And most of you might have heard about Aaron from ASTM, who brought in the expertise from the standard side of things. So this is a little bit of inspiration that we took from Smart Machines 2035 strategy that was published by Robotics Growth Partnership from UK. You can access the link if you type in Smart Machine strategy. Again, in the roadmap to make UK as a global leader in the robotics or sit somewhere up there, which is lacking at the moment, they have identified modularity, interoperability, and common standards as challenges as well. But what we realized is in that strategy paper, they were identified as challenges, but nothing was recommended on what has to be done later. So we took some inspiration on what modularity challenges that they identified, or what is the definition. So a modular system should be adaptable, maintainable, and extensible. Interoperability is something that glues these components in order to make a smart machine, and common standards are the ones which help putting together a system with these modular and interoperable components. So this is what we based our initial exploration on. So as a team that I showed of the experts and ourselves at ARIA, what we did as part of this activity is we organized a one-day workshop where we invited stakeholders from industry, academia, research, and public bodies like standards institutes and regulatory bodies. There were nearly 120 participants at the workshop, and there was a survey that followed after the workshop as well. So rest of this talk, I'll focus on what happened during the sandpit sessions that were like the breakout sessions that happened in that workshop, and some early highlights from the survey that we conducted post-workshop. So there were 3 sand pits. The first, so I'll start off with what are the barriers that the participants in those sand pits identified, which shouldn't be any surprise from why we are already here. So with respect to modularity, SMEs, research and academia, usually they are under pressure to develop something quick and cheap, which again leads to significant duplication. Large enterprises, again, they are more keen on proprietary knowledge, unwilling to share the learnings because they might lose the competitive advantage, and the IP threat also dangles there. When it comes to the interoperability, again, siloed non-collaborative efforts, proprietary systems, especially with the vendor lock-in, people want to bind their own, the vendors want users to buy their own components, and also resistance to change from established workflows. So again, the other third component that came out of these sandpit sessions is safety and security. So you can see there is almost every sentence starts with lack of. So lack of traceability in the traceability of robots in the shared environments, and lack of monitoring infrastructure in case there is an anomalous behavior from any of the robot. So these are all the lacking things that we need to fix. So going on, I'll talk a little bit about what happened during those sandpit sessions or breakout sessions. Instead of going there with a clean slate, we thought we'll go with some recommendations into those sandpit sessions where people can say, no, this is absolutely rubbish, take it away. This is reasonably okay, or yeah, this is fantastic kind of thing. So you can see some of the recommendations that we went with is, do we need a new modularity design theory as something that can be taught right from the university level or at the institutions or organizations? Do we need some training funding, or how do we build a modularity ecosystem? So these are the recommendations we went with into the sandpit sessions. But end of it, we got some feedback from all the participants and the brainstorming that happened in those sessions. And as a team of the expert members and ARIA, we have distilled some high-level recommendations, which I'm presenting here. So one of the recommendations is having a hub where there are some experts in modularity. SMEs can go to them, or even large corporations can go to them and get their system analyzed at the functional, behavioral, and structural level so that they get a report for their future iterations. And the second one is having a dedicated guidebook where things that are not usually found out there, like design experiences, common approaches, these can be captured in that guidebook and can be updated annually. Robotics recipe book includes how can you buy off-the-shelf components and then build a system which performs without any fault. So having some 30 recipes out there. So moving on with the interoperability, some of the recommendations that we went there, people readily accepted. So if you see the identify a subset of electromechanical and safety standards from the already existing standards out there, people were absolutely up for it rather than reinventing something from scratch. We also went in with some of the other suggestions, like can we extend IEEE standard of 1872 to robot actuator ontology? So interoperability was the most debated session of the sandpits, and there were some recommendations that came through. I'll quickly go through them and see how much I can cover. So AI-based negotiation toolkit. In this one, if there is a toolkit that can make the systems to dynamically agree on the data formats, content structures, etc., that is one of the recommendations that came out. Having a unified graphical user interface framework makes things easy, training easy, improves intuitive, makes it intuitive. Unified robot API. I don't know how much of this will stay in the final report because there are various things existing out there. Do we need to create one more? So, like I already said, getting a subset of already existing standards is good and very much particular to the robot dexterity program, there was a suggestion that came up about how can we standardize the tactile data. So this is another thing that came out. So I'll move on in the interest of time to safety and security. Again, safety and security, we went in with some recommendations, but we came out with very different recommendations to what we proposed, which is good with the interaction. So some of the recommendations that you'll find in the report that will be published later is standardized black box modules. So to provide clear and accessible records of the operational history, will this work in order to make it safe and secure for robots to work alongside humans? And anomaly detection systems, how can we trigger interventions before the risk actually escalates? Okay, so after the sandpits, there was a survey that was sent out for people to respond to. And as you can see, there were nearly 50 respondents from various stakeholders. And we are still in the early days of analyzing that, but I'll present a couple of high-level things that came out. Most frequently cited challenges are in system integration and what are the critical standards for interoperability. So you can see some things here. So challenges in the system integration, a lot of them responded that insufficient documentation or support. I think Adam was highlighting that as well. Lack of standardized protocols and compatibility issues with hardware interfaces, which is again something that can be fixed if everyone agrees to it. So the second one is critical standards for interoperability. As you can see, electrical standards, which is surprising to see. A lot of the things evolve. We use the same sort of cables to charge our phones, but we don't have similar things for robots. So I'll not dwell too much on this now because we are running out of time. But if you want to learn more about ARIA's robot dexterity program, scan the top QR code. And the report that is coming out summarizing all the activity that we did on modularity, interoperability, and standards that will be launched at TAROS, which is a UK conference with international participation on towards autonomous robotic systems, which is on 20th to 22nd, University of York. I think our launch is on first day. Probably just before the lunchtime to be confirmed. If any of you are attending that, please come over and happy to chat there as well. And it will be available on our website after. Okay, thank you.
Oh, wow, there's a lot more to do. Questions? One has one. I have a lot. I don't want to.
So standardization is very important, but a lot of the research is also trying to go beyond what is standard in some sense, right? Especially on the hardware side of things like for robotic end effectors. Well, we may need to develop new solutions that are more effective, but at the same time, then it's not easy to standardize the evaluation of the software.
Yeah, exactly. So. For us, we were focusing, although the standardization need to happen at the software level and the hardware level as well. I think Stefan was mentioning about that too. With the hardware standardization, especially making them plug and play to use, I was also mentioning about the USBs. OPC UA was something that came up. So if there are things that are existing out there, can we reuse them or at least repurpose them for the robotics components? So that is what we were trying to explore and open for any suggestions. And I appreciate the fact that for the research that happens in universities and small corporations, it is difficult to standardize because they want to develop something quick and then deliver as a solution. But if we work together as a team, I'm sure we'll find a solution.
Other questions? I'll pose a question. On your modularity recommendations, which I'm very excited to see both of those and the interoperability ones. When you talk about the kind of robotics recipe, can you give a little more detail into like, would this be for ways to combine other modular components or to make components modular for different robot scenarios?
I don't think this is to make components modular. It is to combine the modular components, is my understanding from the expert committee that we are working with. We are still open for some suggestions if anything need to be changed. I think mid-July is under run. So if it is useful to also include recipes, the question that you're asking might go into the guidebook. Not in the recipe.
Interoperability, if I understood your definition. Other questions? Ask a quick question for how many people here were aware of ARIA as a research organization? Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. This is something I'm becoming aware of over.
I never used to see any hands raised. So at least 2 or 3 hands raised now. So you're getting there.
And when we talk about launching that guidebook, is that you're giving a talk at that Taros conference? Or?
So at Taros, we are not launching the guidebook, but we are publishing this report with those recommendations and like also suggesting who can act on it. In some cases, maybe us, if there is funding. In some cases, it could be a standards body like a Standards Institute or maybe international collaborations or those kind of things. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Fresh from his